Hey kids.
I am certain that the average YouTube audience will be extremely interested in Chinese Romanization.
Now you may have tried reading Winnie the Pooh's name in a discussion with someone else, and immediately died upon pronouncing it as Xi Jinping. That's because you're stupid. Chinese is a language that is intrinsically incompatible with the Latin alphabet. You have to deal with sounds like and ch, which don't actually exist in English or, in fact, in any language that uses the Latin alphabet natively, along with taking on the problem of sounds that appear similar to English or, in fact, European ears, such as ch and ch, but are distinctly different in Chinese. So trying to transcribe all this in an accurate way is a massive pain, and that's not even going into the problem of romanizing tones. Therefore, it really isn't a surprise that many different romanization systems have been made throughout the years. The first major, widely used romanization system is Waite-Giles, a system with serious problems. It was made in a time where the people who actually needed these systems were mainly Chinese scholars of European descent, and therefore, it wasn't really thought out with the common people in mind. And the common people kind of are the people who use romanization systems today. Therefore, in terms of what actually comes out of people's mouths when they try to decode this without much experience, it sounds like someone speaking while also drinking a copious amount of molten gold. That's actually a thing. Or someone with a very, very, very strong Cockney accent. I fucking butchered that, didn't I? Look at this. Waite and Giles romanized this word as Joe. Can you guess how it's actually pronounced? It's pronounced raw. That is bad shit. And it gets even worse. Listen to this. Duh. Duh. Is that a D or is that a T? It is a T. As the Chinese D is unvoiced and unaspirated, it is technically a T. Yet to most ears, English and Chinese, the unaspirated T is very similar to English D. In fact, they may even be indistinguishable. Yet Waite and Giles decided to represent the Chinese unaspirated T as a normal English T, which is technically correct, but in practice just wrong, while representing the aspirated T, which is just a normal English T, as T apostrophe. Confused? Well, the result is simple. Here's an example. This is the Chinese character which means east. It's pronounced dong. Basically, D-O-O-N-G. Yet Waite-Giles spells it with a T, leading to, well, most people pronouncing it as tong, which is the pronunciation of a completely different character, meaning path. So how did Waite and Giles deal with the character that is actually pronounced tong? They spell it as T apostrophe UNG, which ends up being pronounced t-ung. That's not understandable for any speaker, except for Waite and Giles apparently. In 1926, Zhao Yunren, Lin Yutang, and a couple of other linguists developed Guoyu Romazi, a system defined by a new invention, tonal spelling. It's divisive. On one hand, it is true that Chinese tones are quite important for meaning, and that the use of diacritics, such as in pinyin, is problematic due to how easily they get dropped when typing. For example, the phrase ziyi in the first tone, and spelled in pinyin as ziyi regardless of tone, can mean when pronounced ziyi, purple shirt, and when pronounced ziyi, suppressing your emotions, and when pronounced ziyi, suicide by hanging. Similarly, the phrase pronounced in first tone as 我要早饭 can mean when pronounced 我要早饭 as I want breakfast. And when it is pronounced 我要造反, it means I want to start a rebellion. And I'd like to think that that's the reason Anlu Shan started his one.
Fuck man, haven't had my breakfast and do this.
What do you say?
Is it? I haven't had my breakfast and do this.
Emperor, your loyal servant reports that General An is complaining that he has not rebelled in 2 days.
What the fuck? Arrest him.
What the shit? I'm actually going to rebel now. So, we finally suppressed this rebellion. Over 30 million people dead. Say, how did this thing even start?
Well, he said he only rebelled in two. Wait. Uh-oh.
Although affixing syllables with extra letters or duplicating vowels is an innovative way of marking tones, it doesn't help Guoyu Lomatsu score any points in aesthetics, and decoding written Guoyu Lomatsu is a Herculean task, to say the least. And here are some examples. Can you guess how this word, transcribed like this in Guoyu Lomatsu, is actually pronounced? No, you're wrong. It's not Baizing, it's Baizing.
Another problem with Guoyu is that words differing only by tone look completely different. Hubei province is spelled Huobi, and Hubei, meaning prepare, is spelled Hebei. Frankly, the myriad of rules in Guoyu Romatsu makes it overcomplicated. And what for? At least according to a study from 1991, pinyin is the superior system, even for tone recognition, which is supposedly the advantage of Guoyu Romatsu. So, there's a reason Guoyu is rare nowadays, much to the chagrin of Quora users, and much to the happiness of the poor soul in some administrative office who did not understand Chinese but had to decode all this. I swear, if I look at another piece of text with an excessive number of R's and way too many fucking W... Now, for Hanyu pinyin, this is a system that people actually use, and it is quite a good system. While you may disagree as you try to mouth Mao, Ze, Dong, and end up sounding like you're talking about a cat and a dill... I wanted to make a joke here, but I don't want my channel to be deleted before my first video even comes out, so... segue...
Like most systems besides Weijiao's, it uses voice consonant spelling, i.e. using D instead of T, to represent unaspirated consonants in Chinese, which is much more understandable than the alternative. Most of pinyin is actually quite readable for an English speaker. I'm talking about phrases such as swan, by. You know, with a little getting used to, most people can understand them with no difficulty. However, due to the innate differences between Chinese and English, there are some sounds in Chinese that are difficult to represent in English, like the E sound in the, which is common in Chinese but less common in English, and because of existence of that other sound, can often be confused with it. For example, the phrase geng. People unfamiliar would pronounce it as gang instead of the actual pronunciation. But there really isn't a better way to Romanize this sound, so let's just say pinyin tried. And let's be real, these kind of errors are not in fact particularly problematic, as remembering rules such as the E in Chinese is the E in the, and the A is the A in ah. It's not that hard unless you are like 8. If you are, please don't mention the thing about Mao earlier to your parents. Anyways, I'm done praising this system. Now for its flaws. The distinguishing between alveolo-palatals and retroflex sounds is something that varies between system and system, and all systems have flaws regarding it. Wait. Time to explain. This is a mouth, and this is the heart palate, while this is the alveolar ridge. An alveolo-palatal sound is one made with the tip of the tongue positioned here, while a retroflex sound is one made when the tip of the tongue is bent back to reach the top of the mouth, for example like this. Chinese has both retroflex and palatal sounds, and they sound quite similar. See if you can tell in the next 3 pairs which one is retroflex and which one is palatal.
接知切吃是
In all 3 cases, the palatals were the first one. Given how similar palatals and retroflexes sound, many Romanization systems chose to use one symbol to represent both of them. Usually, they chose the 3 symbols J, CH, and SH, because these exist in English and the palatals and retroflexes are both quite similar to each of them.
In Chinese, palatals and retroflexes don't share the same finals, so there will never be a problem where you have to distinguish between the two in order to show two different phrases. So why bother distinguishing them? It's not as if an American can actually tell the difference. The thing is, Pinyin was made with only Mandarin speakers in mind, for the purpose of educating children and spelling names. And especially for the former, it's quite important that people actually learn the correct pronunciation. So rather than go pronounce CH like ch when it's before one, when, blah blah, and like t when it's before yue, yuan, they just used a new symbol for the palatal consonant. Problem solved. Easy and convenient learning. Except, for some reason, the symbol they chose for t was Q, which makes a qu sound in many languages, including English. Not to mention X for S, which makes Emperor Xi Jinping's name harder to pronounce. But this compromise is understandable. Either you don't distinguish palatals, or you distinguish palatals in a manner that is difficult for international speakers. Or is it? Now I, and the other guy who made this, are not professional linguists, but we tried to see whether we could distinguish palatals using a clearer method. Tangent time! In ancient China, writing was developed after the spoken language had developed, and many concepts had the same pronunciation. This made it necessary for the written characters to distinguish between such concepts. They did this by adding radicals. I'll use an example here to illustrate it. The sound sem in Old Chinese meant onions. It also means killing off and annihilating an entire group of people or animals. Naturally, these sounds had to be distinguished. So when characters were created for these words, they used this character for both characters to represent the phonetic sem, but they added the radical for death to this one, which hints at the meaning of total destruction. So it occurred to me, could we try something like that? As in, make a different symbol to represent the palatals, but make them like hint at a sound for it, rather than be completely different. So, me and some other guy came up with the idea of representing Q as TSY and X as SY. These changes have an obvious aim, to make them distinct from the retroflex sounds, but also make them pronounceable to English learner. You may think the Y causes an issue, because it can be pronounced as E or I, but in fact, due to the finals paired to the palatals, this is not a problem. And since we already did this, we decided, why not try and make the rest of Pinyin more understandable? Another set of sounds that Pinyin has issues with are the sounds Z and C. These are represented as Z and C respectively. We'll analyze the C because it's the more obvious oddity. The Pinyin C is basically an aspirated T, rapidly followed by an S, analogous to how CH, ch, is an aspirated T, followed rapidly by a SH sound. It's the sound made when saying cats. Cats. That's TS sound at the end. And it seems that the choice of a C to represent it was quite bad. TS would be much more understandable. If you've ever played Dynasty Warriors or know about the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you have likely tried pronouncing Cao Cao's name as Cao Cao. And now, after so long, you'll understand that his name was never bovine in nature. But his given name still means molest. There's another problem with Pinyin, inconsistency with spelling the same sound, or inconsistency in the sound produced by each character. This is highlighted by how the sound wo is, depending on the consonant before it, represented by both UO and O. Perhaps this is sort of aesthetic concerns, but let's be real, it's much more convenient and simple to just always represent it as UO. There are too many examples for me to cover up, but well, if you want a link to the changed Pinyin system, it'll be in the description. Disclaimer, this system was not made by people with linguistic expertise. Anyways, even if you think this system is garbage, and this video is garbage, at the very least, you should understand how to pronounce most Chinese names. And I guess it really is garbage, honestly. And thus, the message from all this is that the English alphabet and all languages are completely garbage, and that we should communicate with each other through the use of, I don't fucking know, pictures of Sayaka Miki? I'm thinking of making an alphabet exclusively utilizing Madoka Magica Go.